Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker?
It's good to see you. Listen,
You're a Bitcoin maximalist. You're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central bank digital currency.
Hey, I don't have all the answers, but together, I know we can find them.
Down in competition in the ratings tab for late night weekend.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Welcome to Rob Nelson Live. Happy Monday. I guess it's a happy Monday. There's a lot going on. I'm going to focus on actually one pretty specific thing in this show, and it's gun violence and guns and the Second Amendment. So this weekend, we had a trifecta, and it's not a good trifecta. A big one, a medium one, and a small one. And that's just on the surface of the shootings. And I'm going to jump into them. And it's a little bit of a sobering realization of where we're at and what goes on increasingly on the day-to-day in our society. But I want to try and just sort of take a shot at this. Sunday, depending on where you were in the world, there was a shooting in Bondi Beach in Australia, a popular tourist destination. And they were doing an event called Hanukkah by the Sea, which celebrates the start of the Jewish holiday, and Hanukkah, the beginning of Hanukkah. And it's the Festival of Light. Beautiful, it's the first lightings of the candles, the menorah, all of it. It's like, it's a really symbolic, a really joyous thing. And this was marred by a mass terrorist shooting on a beach in Australia. So you've got thousands of people coming out to celebrate in a popular destination on the beach, a beautiful, celebrate the beginning of a beautiful holiday period. Again, the Festival of Light, and two gunmen, a 50-year-old father and his 24-year-old son, show up and open fire. They kill at least 15 people. I'm not counting the father who got killed. I don't really like to count them. I don't like to count them as people who died. I like to count them as garbage that was gotten rid of. But 15 innocent people died, and there's at least like a couple dozen more in the hospital. So it's possible more will die. And it's not even the death toll itself, although this is the second biggest thing since Jews since the October 7th Hamas invasion of Israel, this terrorist attack on Israel. So, and it ranged from 10 to 87, two rabbis, little kids, old people. And it clearly was a terrorist attack. There's no question in anyone's mind that this was aimed to target Jews. That's not up for dispute. The Australian Prime Minister said, what he called the Islamic State ideology. And there's a lot of Islamic people have emigrated to Australia. But he said it's the ideology that's been around for more than a decade that led to this ideology of hate, and in this case, a preparedness to engage in mass murder. The gunman, one of them was investigated, I think the father, in 2019, but was not considered a person of interest, whatever that means, and was not subject to ongoing monitoring. I always wonder about that. Like, well, they were investigating him. Why? I don't know the answer. I'm just curious. Why were they investigating him? There's a reason they chose to investigate him, but then decided he wasn't worth ongoing monitoring. You hear that a lot. You'll hear a lot. Well, we had this person on our radar for a minute and decided no threat here. So I don't know, because they're on your radar again for a reason, right? It's not just like they pick some random person to put everyone who has a gun goes on the radar. Like, they investigated this guy for something he did, said, wrote, looked into it, decided not worth ongoing monitoring. You hear this a lot. Think about it. The number of times you've heard, yeah, we were aware of that shooter a year ago and we decided it wasn't worth following them. maybe somebody needs to work on what they decide is worth ongoing investigation in a lot of different places, because it seems too often we hear, well, this person was, and we looked into them, but decided they weren't worth pursuing. And then something like this happens, you know, or any number of other shootings that happen, and you go, well, I guess they were worth looking into. Or there's a bigger problem, which is you can't decide who to look into because this is just such a sick virus that's permeating our society, a mind violence virus. Not just a mind virus, a mind violence virus. And of course, they're going to look into whether the person was radicalized further after that. So I think they looked into him because they thought this person was being radicalized. They looked and like, not enough here. Clearly, I think they saw somebody who was being radicalized. You know, the prime minister said, you know, anti-Semitism has been around a long time. Islamic State is an ideology that tragically over the last decade, particularly since 2015, has led to a radicalization of certain people. And that's also the Intifada, you know, from the river to the sea, all of it. The naive, I don't want to say they don't know what they're doing. The naive American college students, I don't think they're, I would hope most of them, the vast majority, wouldn't be supportive of anything like this. But their ignorance no longer is an excuse. So if you're the parent of one of these kids, or if you're a friend of one of these kids, it's time to stop playing dress up. It's time to stop playing. It's time to stop playing Palestinian house. You're contributing to the problem. You're contributing to the rhetoric and the problem, and you don't get to keep doing that anymore without consequence. I mean, look, they're locking people up in Britain for posting stuff online that's not woke enough, criticizing a transgender person, saying something, mispronouncing somebody. And lock people up for this. Then I'm not actually in favor of locking people up for speech, but I'm just saying, if you're going to go after that, go after the people who are like mindlessly wandering around, but chanting for a global intifada that's leading to more and more of this. Now, the violence against Jews is one particular piece, but it's just the tip of it, because the violence isn't just against Jews. There is a widespread violence that is permeating, and it's not just in America, land of the free, home of the brave, and lots of guns. You know, I've talked about where I think, and I'll mention it again in this episode, where I think the roots of so much of our violent culture comes from. But it's worldwide, and it's in societies with, I mean, Australia has incredibly strict gun control laws. Now, they're proposing having more gun control. They're sort of saying, you know, they're already looking at strengthening their gun laws, which are already restrictive. So I don't know, you know, limiting the number of guns someone can own, reviewing licenses held over time. Those are perhaps logical outcomes. Again, this is in Australia, not in the US, where you'd run into the Second Amendment challenge. But civilian firearm ownership has been pretty dramatically restricted in Australia since the mid-90s, when that Tasmanian thing happened where someone killed like 35 people. But so, yeah, you know, one of the proposals was you have to be an Australian citizen to own a gun, limiting the types of guns that are legal, limiting open-ended firearms licensing, all kinds of proposals we've looked at here too. I mean, at a certain point, you know, sure, but why? I mean, at a certain point, is it stopping it? You're seeing gun violence in places with the most restrictive gun laws. I always point out, like Chicago, New York have the most extreme gun laws, and you have massive gun violence. It's not school shootings every day, or shopping malls, or temples, or churches. It could be. But it's shooting. Literally, people get shot every weekend, shot up in the streets. I mean, I've said for years, we overlook the mass amount of violent death that goes on in our inner cities, because it's the It's nice to be liberal and give people names and be like the unhoused, not the homeless, the whatever, the menstruating people, not women, whatever you want to say. I mean, how about you just focus on where you forget the names and words and stupid language people create every year, every weekend for years and years. It's been going on for decades. When I wrote my book Last Call, 20 years ago, this was going on. You have massive amounts of inner city violence, often black on black, black on brown, brown on black violence inside these cities, in these communities. It's been going on nonstop, and we do nothing about it. Call it what it is. It's killing innocent children, destroying families, ruining lives over and over and over and over and over again, week after week after week. It only gets attention when it's so many, like 4th of July weekend, 27 people were shot in Chicago, or when there's a mass shooting that typically targets more middle income people, broader swath of people than the drive-bys, the gang-related shootings that pick up so many people. Gun violence is a problem in America. I don't think the rules are going to stop it. It's also a problem increasingly in other countries, even ones like Australia, that have extremely strict gun control laws. It was targeted at the Jewish community. That is a problem. That's a real problem. But it's a symptom of a bigger problem, because at the end of the day, the violence being targeted at Jews is unacceptable. The anti-Semitism we're seeing is unacceptable. The ridiculous posturing and kowtowing toward those who want to pretend they're Palestinian. It's like, it's like Bill Maher makes that comment, like queers for Palestine. And he laughs, right? It's like queers for Palestine, where you can't be queer. It's the absurdity. But the violence is deeper than one faith, and deeper than one ideology, deeper than anti-Semitism, deeper than, anti-anything, deeper than a targeted attack on any group or community or set of values. That's a real thing. But the violence itself, the extremity of the violence, is out of control. And I want to point out before I go, I said there's 3. This is the big one, the Bondi Beach attack, hospitalizing, 36 people, killing 15 at this point, and just terrorizing an entire community. And the first night of a religious holiday, this festival of light. But here's this interesting twist. There's one person who intervened in this process and tackled, I believe it was the second gunman, both gunmen were shot. The father was killed, the son's in the hospital. And honestly, hopefully he dies. I don't have any part of me that's like, oh, hopefully he lives. Like, hopefully he dies. He lives in, I guess it'll be a high profile case and he'll have lawyers and the whole thing, and it'll go on and on and on. Eventually he'll get, sentenced to life in prison. I would prefer he die. I don't really feel like this person needs to still be alive. And I have no problem saying that. I don't think all life is equal. I think that's a fantasy, that all life is equal. All life isn't equal. If all life was equal, you wouldn't prioritize anyone. You wouldn't put your kids before your spouse, or your spouse and your kids before your neighbors, or your neighbors before people you don't even know in the street. Everyone would be the same. You wouldn't choose anyone to pick. You defend a horrible serial killer. You defend a child molester, a rapist. You defend the worst person in the world as much as you would defend a person you think is the best person in the world. If all life was equal, it's not equal to any one of us. This guy's life, not even worth another thought in my mind. I wish his name would get erased. We seem to be good at erasing people. Let's erase his name. Let's erase his past. Let's erase who he is. And let's bury him in an unknown grave somewhere and pour crap on it. I mean, seriously, that would be a good outcome. But that said, one person did intervene to stop one of the shooters and tackled him and disarmed him, and then pointed the person's gun at him, the attacker's gun at him, before laying it on the ground. That person was Ahmed Al-Ahmed, an Australian immigrant who obviously is from a Muslim country. Ahmed Al-Ahmed, from an Arab country. No, I don't know Ahmed Al-Ahmed's religious background. I don't know if he's Christian, Jew, Islamic, I don't know. I do know it's interesting that the one person who intervened to stop the shooter was a guy named Ahmed Al-Ahmed, and was an Australian immigrant who I mean, he got shot too. I mean, he got shot like a bunch of times stopping the guy. He's in the hospital with a bunch of bullets in him. He's going to live. His lawyer said he doesn't regret what he did and he'd do it again. He's not well at all. He's riddled with bullets, said his lawyer. Our hero is struggling at the moment. I'm sure he is, and he deserves a lot of love and prayers. And who knows how many people's lives he saved. He has 2 daughters, a 5 and a 6-year-old. He's 44. He is Muslim, by the way. So a Muslim man jumps in and intervenes on the anti-Semitic attackers who are running with an Islamic State philosophy, takes a bunch of bullets, disarms one of the gunmen, and prevents him, doesn't shoot him, interestingly, would have had every right to. He came from Syria in 2006 and received his citizenship in Australia in 2022. He doesn't want a lot of press coverage. His lawyer said he just was compelled to do what he did as a human being on that day. How beautiful. How much more could we use that? Somebody just compelled to do what they do as a human being. I don't need attention. I don't need Instagram posts. I did what I felt compelled to do as a human being. And he said it was also his way of expressing gratitude for being able to live in Australia. It's just kind of beautiful, for being granted citizenship. He appreciates this community, his lawyer said. And as a member, he felt he had to act this way and contribute. Well, that's a big contribution. I'm going to take a bunch of bullets. I'm maybe going to die. I'm going to stop this guy from killing more people. Irony, in a way. Can't make it up, because the ideological hatred can go both directions, right? And right now, our biggest problem is hate. It's not guns. It's not even one particular ideology or one anti-ideology. It's hate. We live in a culture of hate. It is like poison. It's like we're in Harry Potter or in The Stand. You know, it's like The Stand. It's like somebody's getting infected and it's turning them from the inside out into like a monster. We're turning into monsters. Look at yourself and be careful. The monster in you doesn't have to be willing to pull a gun on somebody. It might just be one that cheers on the death of a Charlie Kirk, or that cheers on the death of a bunch of Jews in Australia. It might be the one that simply loves to just like see people ripped down and just, you know, can't help themselves but call people the most foul, horrible names for having views that you don't agree with. The monster in us doesn't, there was the monsters emerged during COVID, the Karens. I mean, it doesn't have to literally be, I'm going to put a gun and point it at you for that monster to be poisoning you. And to be honest, and I'm going to get to it before we're done, that monster's there in Donald Trump and his reaction to the Rob Reiner shooting, which is going to be the 3 of our trifecta. So let's talk about 2, Brown University. A guy goes on the campus of Brown University during a study weekend, right before finals, goes into an older building and so what they call a soft target, and shoots up a bunch of people. He goes in. I think he used a 9mm handgun. I don't know if he had another gun also as well. He kills 2 students, wounds a bunch more, terrorizes a campus. So you got a situation. The person appears to have known the target they were after, the targets, the people, and they knew where they were doing it. They were familiar with the university. They entered a building with unsecured doors and very limited cameras, security cameras. That's its whole question. The Brown saying it's an old building. This person perhaps knew there weren't a lot of cameras in there. They have very little good footage of this person. They have some. But they haven't caught him. They don't know where this person is. They don't know who this person is. And they have very limited footage on the person. But, you know, they think just from what they can see from the clothing, was dressed to do it, knew how to use a semi-automatic, and did. And did this out of hate. Hate, I don't know for who. A young Republican, prominent Republican student leader was killed. Was this was it targeted at conservatives? I don't know. Was it a grudge against students? Was it a grudge against the university? We'll find out, hopefully, eventually, if they catch the guy. But this guy's still on the loose. I mean, we think, you know, you can't get away with stuff. I mean, you know, whatever. It's been a few days. They don't know where this person is. They don't have a lot of leads, and they don't have a lot of footage. That's not good. I'm sure they'll eventually track him down. They better. But this is not as big as the anti-Semitic terror attack. But if you're Brown, if you're these parents, if you're these kids, if you're their families, if you're their friends, if this is you in your school, you're scared. I mean, people are scared. You don't know what's safe anymore. Let's go to school and have a study day. Hopefully somebody doesn't come in and shoot us. It just happens everywhere. And the chief of Providence Police is very clear that it was a targeted attack. This wasn't random. So that's the second one. And that one's pretty frightening too when you think about it. Like, again, now we're just campuses, everything's, you know, and if it's not all locked down, and then they put everyone into lockdown, and, you know, it just becomes routine. This is daily. I'm old enough to remember when a school shooting, when Columbine happened, when a school shooting would happen, every X number of months or a year, it would be like another shooting a year later. God, we just had one a year ago. Oh, this one's in a shopping mall. This was worse than Columbine. Oh, this one happened in a movie theater. Remember at Aurora? Oh, then it started to become like one every couple months, then one a month. Now it seems like it's one a week, sometimes less. I feel like every other day I open a news app to find out there was a shooting at a Walmart. There was a shooting at a store. There was a shooting at a school, at a university. There was a shooting at a holiday celebration. It's like one after the other. People are shooting each other up. We're living in Gotham City. It's Batman. And it's just, you know, open season. Nobody's safe. Everybody's getting shot up. Or someone runs you down in a car, just decides to plow into a bunch of pedestrians celebrating something. The anger, the hatred, the deep, 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 deep anger is just pulsating out. So the third of the trifecta, Rob Reiner and his wife, the actor and director. Obviously, those you know goes all the way back to, you know, All in the Family, played Meathead, the young, you know, married to Sally Struthers, Archie's daughter, a brilliant satire about society and life, and, you know, Archie Bunker was the biggest racist, and, you know, and misogynist, and the whole point was to make fun. He couldn't do it now because people would think it's too offensive, but the whole point was to make fun of the offensiveness, to make fun of to make fun, not in a good way, to belittle the narrow-minded bigotry of Archie Bunker. But Rob Reiner started there, then directed so many movies. You know, obviously, Princess Bride, one of my favorites. Spinal Tap started the mockumentary. Started mockumentaries with that. He did serious films. He did funny films. He was a great filmmaker. And his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, was producer. Their daughter found them in their Brentwood home, and they were stabbed to death by their son. So now this is a smaller one. It's obviously getting a lot of attention because he was famous. They lived in a beautiful home in Brentwood, California, expensive, wealthy neighborhood, enclave, if you will. When the rich and the powerful and the protected start dying, people worry. Now, this happened to be from within the family. They have 3 kids, 2 sons and a daughter. And supposedly the son, Nick, who they're charging with murder, 32 years old, was seen having an argument with his dad at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party, holiday party at Conan O'Brien's house the night before. And they pretty convinced he did it. First of all, you imagine, I mean, there's something just twisted and tragic and Faustian and beyond Shakespearean tragedy of like, Hamlet and Macbeth. I mean, everybody dies in a Shakespearean tragedy. It's like your kid kills you. And it's got to be the worst outcome. You bring him into the world, you raise him. Apparently he had issues with drugs at one point, but was sober now. But your kid comes and kills you. Now, I don't know what that says about a parent. I'm not judging them. I'm just saying, I don't know. Like, are you responsible at some level if your kid decides to murder you? Like, I mean, did you raise someone who could think they could murder their parents? I don't know. I just think it's an interesting thing. I mean, no matter how much you might hate your parents, if they haven't literally been if your dad wasn't systematically, physically, and sexually and abusing you and your siblings and your mom or whatever, and you just decide I'm putting a gun to his head because he's going to kill us sooner or later. I mean, to kill your parent, both of them, to stab them to death over any disagreement. I don't know what that says about any of us other than, wow, it's sick and twisted. The daughter, Rami, posted a solo shot from in her Instagram a week and a half ago on vacation with her parents, end of November, early December. Her dad and her in the ocean. And she captions, thankful for family, health, and followers of any age. God, it can happen to any of us like that. It can happen so fast. It can just come out of nowhere. Boom. We take life for granted, and nor should we ever. But boy, these days, you really can't. You don't know where it's coming from. Now, do I feel terrible for them? Sure. I mean, I'll always say, though, I'll be like, we make a big deal when famous people die. But other people get horrible things like this happen to them all the time, whether it's their kids come and kill them. Somebody invades their house. It's a home invasion robbery, and they die. Some drunk driving down a road, whether they're an illegal immigrant or a non-illegal immigrant, some drunk driving down a road without a license veers off and takes out a mom and their kids, or takes out the mom and leaves the kids, or takes out the kids and leaves the mom. Horrible things happen out of horrific negligence and out of conscious violence, targeted or not targeted. Targeted, maybe you specifically wanted this person. Not targeted, maybe you just wanted to rob someone and take all their things and decided to kill them all on the way, if that's what had to happen. Or just road rage. Two people get in an argument and one guy right in front of the kids. People aren't thinking about the consequence, because the consequence is your life is over. So what I'm trying to say is we're at a point where people have decided their life isn't worth preserving. They're not thinking they're going to get away. They're not thinking. Life isn't worth preserving. It's not worth it for some people, increasingly a growing number of people, to decide I'm not just going to act in my most base, vile, violent instincts in the moment, because I'm not actually worried about preserving a future. That's a version of Nothing to Lose, and it's a scary one. I'm going to run out of time here, so I'm going to try to do this last part relatively quickly. I first want to address Trump. What Trump wrote is disgusting. And I don't care who you are. I don't care how mega you are. I don't care how much you love what Trump is doing. This is the point where you have to be willing to recognize that him doing and saying what he said, if you're okay with it, then be okay when the other side does it. Be okay when the other side cheers on Charlie Kirk's death. He wrote that it was a sad thing that happened in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, who he calls tortured and struggling, but once very talented. That's so Trump and so disgusting and so inappropriate to someone who just died. But all right, struggling and tortured, but once very talented, because he's not very talented anymore because he doesn't like Donald Trump. I'm sorry, Donald Trump, Mr. President. He can still be talented and not like you. You may think he has Trump derangement syndrome. He might have. Doesn't mean he wasn't talented. For Trump, anybody who says something bad about him's lost all their talent, lost all their ability. Marjorie Taylor Greene is now a crazy, freaky leftist commie who has no gifts or anything. You suddenly lose all of it because you didn't like or say something that good about Donald Trump. But that's who he is. But he says he passed away along with his wife, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as the Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump. He's writing about himself here, by the way, in the third person, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before. And then he decides to throw in for good measure, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. Wow. The self-aggrandizement in that, the self-adulation, he died because he had Trump derangement syndrome. Now, I don't know, maybe he got in a fight with his son about something about Trump. I wasn't there. I don't know. Trump wasn't there either. But he died because his son stabbed him and his mom to death over an argument. Who knows what it's about? He died because he had Trump derangement syndrome? And he drove people crazy? So assuming he must have driven his son crazy because he was ragingly obsessed with Donald Trump and his paranoia reached new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, created the golden age of America as never before. I mean, good Lord. At a certain point, people, you got to wake up and go, enough. Now, I'll give some people credit. There were a number of conservatives who did, but, they're the obvious. Thomas Massey, MTG, said this is a family tragedy, not about politics or political enemies. Don Bacon, a retiring Republican, said it was classless. Oklahoma's Rep. Stephanie Bice, this should not be about politics. But it's all the things we say or people on the right say about the left when they do this. So you got to say it about President Trump. It's not okay. It's not okay for the president of our country, no matter how many great things he's doing. And I'll give him credit. He's doing some great things, not as many as he may say. Not everything is as great as perfection it's ever been. It's the best it's ever been in any way, shape, or form. But he's doing some good things, and he's doing things he was elected to do. But you draw a line. You are still the leader of our country, and you have a position. The same way you expect other people to treat you with respect and dignity, you expect the press to, you expect the TDS people to not have TDS, then stop doing it back. And those of you who support and surround him need to say, that's too far. We don't do that. We don't like when they do that. We don't like when they mock Charlie Kirk. Good for him. He's dead. You don't do it either. It's not okay. It's not presidential. And it's part of the sickness that's affecting America. And if the president's getting the sickness, well, then who knows who else is getting the sickness? That sickness can be going all over the place. It is a sickness and it's a disease. It's not just Trump derangement syndrome. There is something going on that is making us all. There's the Trump derangement syndrome, and then there's the opposite side of that, which is the Trump adulation syndrome, the Trump is God syndrome, and everything Trump does has to be good, and anybody who criticizes him has to be bad. We've got a violent culture. We've always had a violent culture. I said, go watch Ken Burns if you can drag yourself through 12 hours of it because it's so boring and monotone, but there's great info in it. We come from a violent culture. The Patriots were violent. They took the Tories, who were the Americans living here who were still supportive of the British, and they terrorized them. They'd tar and feather them. They'd scare them. They'd chase them down. They'd burn their houses down. They'd threaten them. They'd chase them out of town. They literally terrorized them because they're like, you support Britain still, and we're now no more. Now you're our enemy. Brother against brother, family against family. It was violent, and the Patriots were scary. They were like, we'll take everybody. It was mob rule. It's where it came from. As for guns, we're never getting rid of guns in this country. We're a country that was built on the right to have a gun. Now, I'll say this quickly, and I've said it before. Don't confuse yourself about the Second Amendment, everybody. The Second Amendment's pretty clear. It gave people the right to own guns, and it gave them the right to own guns to form militias. Bottom line, our founding fathers were concerned about Britain having power. And we had militias before the revolution to take care of the Indians and, fight off indigenous peoples and whatnot. The idea that Americans should be able to have guns and form militias was what kept us alive. We would have lost the Revolutionary War without it. That's why they did it, so that citizens could be armed and could form militias and prevent an oppressive government from taking over. That's why we have the Second Amendment. The problem today is, to match that, we'd all have to have tanks and guns and missiles and advanced missile systems and bombers and everything. Can't match the government anymore with muskets. You could back then, and cannons on your boats and your walls. But that is why they had the Second Amendment, so that people could be armed to protect themselves and to form militias to fight off the government. That's the reason why we're never getting rid of it, unless we want to change the Second Amendment. But that is what they wanted. If we don't want that anymore, we can change it. But there is a right to a gun, and it's a reason it's the Second Amendment. First, you get to say what you want. Second, if they come for you, you get to form militias and shoot them. That's what we did. That's what the American Revolution was. Get it straight. I'm tired of hearing these complicated arguments. It's not what they meant. It is what they meant. They meant for people to be able to arm themselves, form militias, and fight off an oppressive government, whether foreign or domestic. If your own government, in this case, it was Britain, which was the government at the time, fight them off. That's why they did it. If we want to change it, we have to change it. But that's what it says. And that's why people are allowed to have guns. It's not going to allow you to overthrow the government, because it's not going to be enough. But that is why. And it ain't going away unless we decide to change it. And it's pretty deeply rooted in our culture. And again, I don't think you're going to be able to have an armed uprising. Although if push came to shove, Americans are pretty ingenuitive. Who knows what people would do, whether it's against AI or whether it's against in a civil war, which I've said we could have, might have. I've gone long. Appreciate everybody taking time to watch. I'll see you on Wednesday. David Goxton is joining me on Wednesday, 8:15. So you want to be there. We're going to talk Bitcoin, crypto. Bitcoin's clearly having its struggles. It's in the upper 80s right now. I don't like that. I was liking it more just above 90, 91, but we'll talk about it. Have a great Monday night. I'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks for watching.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker, it's good to see you. Listen,
You're a Bitcoin maximalist. You're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central bank digital currency.